This is Leafs Morning Take with Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill.
Now we've got a fight started here right off the bat with Rosehill.
30 minutes of live, non-stop Leafs talk starts now.
And so the point streaks are back in the mix tonight as the Leafs get set to host the Anaheim Ducks. It's the Tuesday edition of Leafs Morning Take. It's Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill. How are you doing on this Tuesday, Rosie? You're up in Banff still, eh?
We're good, man. Last day terrorizing this mountain town, back to the prairies. But yeah, no complaints, buddy. What's going on out east?
Not too much. I got some tough news for you. I would say the point streaks are in trouble tonight. You want to know why?
You tell me.
I am going to my first game first game as a fan in years, I guess a fan. I don't know. I'm going to watch the game as a non-media member, and I think anytime I go, the Leafs seem to lose.
No shit. How long has it been? You haven't been in a couple of years?
I haven't been back to Scotiabank Arena since that faithful night. They played the Tampa Bay Lightning. They won in OT. At the time, I was a Leafs radio host on Sportsnet 5-9 of the Fan. I signed off. I said, we back on Thursday. The Leafs host the Nashville Predators, and we never fucking came back. That's how long it's been. So 2020.
Yeah, you're due. I thought I was going to get the honor of bringing you out for the first one in a while, but looks like you're sneaking in there. I love how you can't say as a fan either. You got to quote unquote it.
Well, I told you what happened to me. I was a big-time Leafs fan when I grew up. They ripped my heart out. So I'm no longer a fan. I'm just somebody who goes to the games sometimes and watches and talks about them.
Give me a hypothetical here. Trust me, stranger things have happened. We can admit that. The Leafs go and they win the cup this year. What are you doing? Are you just going hanging off the light poles and whatnot? Or are you saying, well, they got lucky? Or are you just thrilled and back on the train?
Hey, that's a really good question. I think I'd be your typical Toronto media broadcaster where I'd try to report and say they fucked up the parade or something like the Raptors did. Remember when the Raptors won the championship? They fucked up the parade. That's the going joke in Toronto, and they actually fucked up the parade. It was too populated. They didn't have enough security cops, and it was just an absolute shit show, and I'm happy I didn't go. I actually went to the celebration after they won against Golden, which was, right away. The final buzzer rang, everybody went outside, and it was an absolute zoo. And that was the better part. The parade wasn't as good. But that's a really good question. I suppose I would celebrate, but like a disgruntled celebration, if that makes sense.
It doesn't. It makes zero sense.
It makes, well, Leafs fans don't make sense, as you know that. So I'm looking forward to that one. You know who's in town then if I'm going to the game. It's Adam Henrique and the Anaheim Ducks, the Burford native in town, always gets up for these games. And fittingly enough, it's a 14-game point streak. He wears the number 14 for the Anaheim Ducks. So remember to subscribe, tap that like button, leave us a review. Wherever you're checking us out, don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com for the very latest on all things Toronto Maple Leafs. Thoughts, comments, concerns, or questions. Drop us a line in the chat down below here on YouTube, and we'll get to it later on in the show. For now, let's get over the boards. So way back when, October 30th, I remember where I was. I'm sure you did too. October 30th, Anaheim 4, Toronto 3 in OT. It was 3-1 in that game. They blew a 3-1 lead. I believe Trevor Zegras won it in overtime. Would that be on the bulletin board? Are there bulletin boards anymore? But would that be something talked about prior to this game for the Maple Leafs, Rosie?
I think it would be mentioned. Just you want to avoid that sleeper game that's easy to fall into that this team has not fallen into in weeks and weeks and weeks. I keep wondering how far away from that October slide do we have to get before we keep mentioning it almost every single game. But they've done about all they can since that point in time, and I don't think it's a bad thing to remind you that, hey, let's not get too big for our britches here. This team has beaten us not very long ago, and I think that's kind of a bit of a reality check when these teams kind of had nothing but success. I think their only problem is getting a little bit too complacent and laying one of those eggs, and that would be indicative of Leafs teams in the past, wouldn't it be? Just when you think they're rolling, they just decide to shoot themselves in the foot. And, it's been going on for a while here, this feeling of something being different. And they haven't given us any reason to believe they're going to be doing anything like that tonight. So I just think it will be mentioned that this is a team that has beat them in the past, kind of give them a little reality check, and hopefully they just keep doing what they've been doing.
And just seeing notes from the morning skate, it looks like your guy Ilya Samsonov will get the call in between the pipes. It remains to be seen with Anaheim. They played last night. Lucas Dostal, who's a youngster, played for them, so only time will tell. We might not even know until puck drop or the pregame who starts for the Anaheim Ducks on the back-to-back. Now, this is a tough question because they're both really, really impressive, Rosie. What's more impressive for you, Toronto's 14-game point streak or Mitch Marner's 22-game point streak?
To me, the team point streak's more impressive right now. This team, I know they've had some success in the regular season, and this isn't anything real different, but to me, it is a little bit different. It's the manner in their winning. It's a collective effort. It's kind of that team defense thing that this team's been lacking. They've got the goaltending. It's just a more impressive thing. It takes more moving parts to fall into place to get a team point streak going on like that, where a guy like Mitch Marner or take your pick of one of the stars on that team can go on these point streaks and get hot, albeit this point streak by Marner is especially long and especially impressive. But I mean, if you got to pick one, I'll take the team one, but there's no question both of these streaks are impressive, and hopefully they just keep going on and on and on.
Could not agree more, and I'm going to side with you. I think the team point streak is more impressive just because of the longevity of it. To go 14 games without a regulation loss, I think is pretty impeccable in this day and age specifically, where it doesn't matter who you play. It could be Anaheim, it could be Seattle, it can be Tampa. Every game, for the most part, it's going to be a difficult one to play in this league. So I think it really shows the consistency and the longevity of this Maple Leafs team. So I think the team record, that's really, really impressive to go 14 in a row. And I think in addition to that, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but they've gone like a bunch of games past 20, I believe, where they've notched at least a point out of like 22. Like it's only been a couple games. So they're notching points like every night is what I'm trying to say. And to me, just to have that night in and night out, I think is really, really hard. I mean, you played in this league to have the consistency that's tough and over an 82 game slate. You're not always going to have it, right?
Yeah, it is. And I mean, especially I've touched on it before. It's different playing in Toronto. You got that market where when you're in Florida, you can go on that little bit of a tear where you just keep, you get, your head in the sand, and all of a sudden you look up and, man, we're really rolling, aren't we? But in Toronto, it's every single game, every period is dissected, and it seems like it's so long. And to go on a huge run with all the things being written about it and people taking their takes on your team this year, and this is only because of this, and this is only because of that, and well, yeah, but they're lacking this, and every day more questions, media people, they want to write their columns, and it's just never ending, and you're always on the spot when you're playing for that team, and it's impossible just to kind of put the blinders on and just start rolling, it seems like, but this group is doing it, and I think that makes it a little bit more special that, they're going to get the scrutiny. They're going to get the criticism. They're still the group that hasn't gotten it done in the playoffs. And it seems like they're not caring about that whatsoever. They don't seem to have any demons or skeletons in the closet right now. I know it's not playoff time, but this just seems like they're putting it together in a way that everyone's been asking for a long time here.
Yeah, the key part in that right now. Just wait till the springtime. I can't wait for this. Maybe I'll fly out to Calgary with you and we'll watch the games together, and then we'll bask in the glory of those games. Because, man, it's a tough time, the springtime, when you talk to yours truly. But again, let's enjoy the ride before we get to that turbulence and that roller coaster. Speaking of which, I think obviously a major storyline and narrative in this game will be special teams. If you didn't know, the Anaheim Ducks are terrible on the penalty kill, which against a team like Toronto is really, really difficult news. As mentioned, Anaheim played last night. Ottawa was 2 for 4. Alex DeBrincat scoring both goals in the power play. Ottawa just took care of business. They shut the door. Cam Talbot has been really, really impressive throughout his career against Anaheim. It continued last night. But the Ducks come into tonight's game 32nd. Yes, 32 of 32 in the league on the PK. 66%, Rosie. What the fuck?
It's not very good, is it? When you match these teams up, they seem to be like mirror images of each other, complete opposites, and with their records and their power play and their killing as well. It's none of it's really adding up too well in the Ducks' favor. But I know there's a huge spread in those numbers, but if you come and just expect to abandon the game plan and dick around and go for something fancy, it'll blow up in your face, man. These guys are all NHL players. They're pissed off at where they are. They want to turn their season around. They're going to be coming into TO, and they just lost, and they're not happy. And, that's when a team can catch a little fire and bite you in the ass, regardless of all these numbers we're talking about. I'd be careful for, laying that egg if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs. Any team that's in this league can beat any team at any point in time, and that's been proven over and over again. So I hope they don't forget that. But yes, on paper, this Ducks team looks pretty lackluster in a lot of the stats that you would need to see brushing up if you're going to be anything good in this league.
Of course, the other factor too is like, do not forget a team who comes into Toronto, just the local factor too of friends and family being in the building. And, Sean Dursey was a perfect example of that last week where he had like 200 family and friends in the building at Scotiabank Arena. And obviously, it was a big topic of conversation after the game because of the Engvall situation. But guys seem to rise up when they play at Scotiabank Arena. So bottom line, Toronto better be ready. We talked about the power play, 3 for 6 against Calgary. By the way, did you see how many peepers the Flames had last night after Daryl Sutter bitched? They had like 6 or 7 power plays against Montreal, and they still lost.
I know, it's almost like the Sutter's little tentacles have got some power in them, hey?
Yeah, I know. It's funny how that works out. But Toronto, 8th in the NHL, 25.3%. So what do you make of this power play with Rasmus Sandin running it? I know I got a bit of traction on a tweet the other day about Sandin. His numbers have been elevated offensively with Morgan Riley on the shelf. How much of a different look is it having a Sandin as opposed to a Riley, in your opinion?
Yeah, it just depends what they're running. I mean, if I don't claim to be any type of a power play specialist,
Yeah.
the only time I ever even sniffed that was just standing in the net front, taking cross checks and screening the goalie, which doesn't take a whole lot of thought. But I don't mind it. I mean, you got a guy up there with some skill. I think he's got some confidence right now. He can find those open guys and find the seams. You're working it around up top and just trying to find something down low. And man, it doesn't have to be perfect with the guys he's got beside him. You get them, with a little bit of time and a little bit of a lane, they can pick it off pretty easy. So I don't mind him back there. I think he's the best choice when Morgan Riley's out right now. And I don't think it'll be a huge difference. I mean, they're probably running the same type of looks up top and trying to get it to the boys. You got a couple of different options out there, obviously. So I'm not too worried about Sandin quarterbacking it up there. And he's got confidence right now. Things are going good. Like you said, he's elevated his game. So I like it back there. I like the way him and Liljegren have both kind of stepped up. I have confidence in them when they're out there. You know how you see certain guys in certain positions, you're like, oh God, I don't feel any of that with these guys. They've given us no reason to do that. And again, the theme with this roster is guys keep stepping up when they're needed to, and they're put in positions that, maybe aren't considered ideal, and they're getting it done time and time again. And, Sandin up there is a prime example again, and I got nothing but faith that they'll continue on.
Yeah, to add context to that, I don't get the same feeling seeing Rasmus Sandin run PP1 that I do seeing Pierre Engvall in the second power play unit, right? He's going to be back in the mix after that 1-game suspension. Just some things don't go hand in hand, and Pierre Engvall, who I don't try to rip on all the time, but like from a power play perspective, he's not the guy. You're not the guy on PP2. I know he sniped the other game, but like I just have a bit of a different feel. I would add Connor Timmins. I looked, pretty decent. Like it gives a different look. I can't remember the last time the Leafs had sort of a right-handed shooting defenseman on a power play. It's been a while, specifically on PP1, but he's playing on PP2. He got a bit of a look on PP1 as well. I think now's the time for exploration too, Rosie. Like it certainly helps when you're winning game after game after game that you can tinker with things. Like the one thing that's not really being talked about a lot is how often we're seeing some line juggling and line shuffling by Sheldon Keefe, but it's a good time to explore, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, they've been doing it all year, and it hasn't been biting them in the ass at all. And I don't think
Yeah.
there's anything wrong with juggling things up, moving guys around, whether it's special teams or just in your lineup. But when these guys are used to playing with a whole bunch of different guys, you never know what's going to happen down the stretch. Maybe there's some important points that need to come down the stretch. Maybe you're fighting for first place there in your division, and you want to get that playoff spot, and guys are going down and injured, and you got to get thrown in with some guys you haven't played with, and all of a sudden it's like this shock that happens to this team down the stretch. It's not going to be. It's like, yeah, I remember the success we had in December, in November, in January, whatever the case is. These guys are working with each other, and it shows me there's a lot of well-rounded guys. They're not pigeonholed to their one little trick ponies, and they can mix it up and find ways to win. And Keith's been doing that all year, and I think he's going to keep doing it. And eventually, I think when we get some healthy bodies, we'll settle into some patterns where they can really find a groove. But as of right now, I mean, we're still pre-Christmas, and there's bodies in the IR and everything else. So it's fine to work some guys around and see how it works. These guys have been handling it really well. It just shows me that they're deep and they're confident, and they have the abilities to play with all kinds of people. And it's a good time to do it. Like you say, there's no issues with me with mixing it up like that.
I'm with you. Let's get to Rosie Claus. Your holiday wish list. Can we call it Christmas? Can we call it holiday season? Whatever we want to call it. The holiday wish list. You're Kyle Dubas. I know Santa doesn't come till December 24th. We all know that, Rosie. Your holiday shopping. Do you like to get it done early or late? Or are you like in a December 24th or?
I mix it up. My wife usually just has stuff show up at the door and tells me to wrap it, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
But you gotta go out and do your own one think, or your own one thing that you put some thought into. And you're not gonna like it. But me looking at this roster, how do you tell a team that's on the tear that they're on right now what they need to change? Because in my mind, it's not a whole hell of a lot. You just got to keep solidifying this as being your identity. But I mean, you're going to need something, maybe some of that depth scoring, some of that third line stuff, a guy you can, really feel actually confident about on that second power play, and guys that can jump up and play in those top two lines if need be and actually be effective. I know you're asking for a lot in that, but if you were to say one thing up front that you would need, I would say, that third line, really solid player that's got a bit of a two-way deal going on and can also jump up with the big boys and be productive. And again, that is a tall order these days. But if I could say one thing, it would be to kind of replace, if those Kerfoots and Engvalls aren't really going to get it done and be a presence when needed. And I'm not saying they haven't, but just that extra boom at that position would be nice. Again, I don't see them finding that or being able to make that work. And again, I'm happy with how this thing's running, but I'm sure you got other plans for this roster.
Yeah, I'm not losing track of the big picture. I think they still need at least one defenseman. I know you're going to get Morgan Riley back in the mix, but somehow, some way, you have to replace Jake Muzzin. Like, it's fine and dandy to see what Liljegren and Sandin can do in the regular season, but as you know, playoffs a different animal. I think on top of that, what seems to plague this team the most come the Stanley Cup playoffs? Can you answer that? Not to put you on the spot.
Defending, keeping the puck out of their net, and team defense,
Wrong.
goaltending. It's kind of
Incorrect.
Scoring goals.
That's yes, exactly. Like, that's a misconception. Sorry, I'm not putting you on the spot there, but I think it is a misconception that this team can't get the job done defensively. Like, to me, the bigger story the last couple of years specifically has been the inability to score that big goal. And with that in mind, I'm going big game hunting. I'm a gambler. I'm putting all the chips to the middle. Kyle Dubas is a lame duck GM. His job could be on the line, is on the line. I think you go after a big boy. There's a guy in Vancouver, the captain, Bo Horvat, man. He would look perfect in this lineup, Rosie. I know there's optics. I know the salary cap plays a factor. Alex Kerfoot likely has to be part of a deal. There's got to be some assets going the other way, bigger type trade chip piece type trade. But I'm doing my best to get this roster ready for the Stanley Cup playoffs and to get past the first round and to go on the long run here. And Bo Horvat's a guy I'd look at. Ryan O'Reilly, if St. Louis is out of it. If you're looking at a guy with term, Timo Meier, the San Jose Sharks, I'm going big game hunting. I'm not adding a depth piece. They did this a couple of years ago with Nick Foligno instead of Taylor Hall. How did that work out, right? Like, I know hindsight's 2020, but I think you only get select shots of this thing. I'm going all in this year, Rosie.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Hey, I don't mind it, man. Like, can you imagine the splash that would make after all this going through the last couple of years and then injecting a piece like Bo Horvat or Ryan O'Reilly? Like, that's a big thing to do. And my question is, obviously, you're going to have to give up what for that? If you go down the pipeline and think about the future, draft picks, big time draft picks. I mean, that's always a scare for a GM. That when you let these first round guys go, you're like, who is that always going to be forever? I'm going to be the guy that let go of this pick, and you don't know what that's going to end up being. Could be some generational type phenomenal player with a 18-year career. All of a sudden, that's the risk. But, injecting some big boy into that lineup and not giving up too many pieces up on the top end, I do realize that once I started saying that is the knock on them, but I remember watching the playoffs going, Jesus, like, where is the fireworks? Like, we need someone just to take that goddamn thing and score the big one. And they just skate in sand and skate around the outside and the perimeter and just can't get it done. And it's like, wow, after all this firepower and talking about these guys being so explosive, we can't buy a goal in the last, 10, 12 minutes of a game when you're down one. It just doesn't happen and you just lost. I know that feeling as well. So, I mean, if this is the year, that'd be interesting to see the, Dubas go out fishing that way and bring in some monster splash. It would be really shake things up, man, and give us something to talk about. That's for sure.
It would. And I'm just curious his mentality, right? Knowing like he has to know this has to be the season where they do something substantial. They haven't won a playoff series in 18 years. They haven't tipped the scales when he's been the GM. Yeah, they've had really, really strong regular seasons, but like he has to be feeling the pressure, right? And I think along those lines, sometimes you have to push your chips in the middle and say, let's let it eat, let's let it ride. And I think you look at some of the personnel available on the market, and again, a lot can change over the next couple months. I would try to do something bigger than they've done the last couple of years in getting this team prepped, and that's sort of my major takeaway. Every time they seem to lose, they need that extra goal that they're just not getting, which is crazy when you look at this offense on paper and on the ice here in the regular season, right?
Yeah, it is. And to me, it's not like you inject Bo Horvat and then all of a sudden, oh, now we're going to get that big goal at the end of the game when
Yeah.
we need it so bad. To me, that's like a character and identity thing.
Yeah.
Um, when you just need, it's almost like you're so scared to lose that you can't play the way you need to in order to win. And it's tiptoeing, it's gripping your stick, it's staring at the clock all the time. Holy shit, holy shit, holy shit. And I think this team is famous for doing that because of all the
Yeah.
skeletons in their closet and because of how well aware they are of the lack of success in the playoffs. And to me, that comes from within. It comes from the leadership. It just comes from the body of work that you do in the regular season where you solidify yourself as this character type of team that can access that big goal when you need it because you believe in yourselves, you follow the routine, you know that there's faith in the process, and it's not this scrambly holy shit we're desperate almost every single game in the playoffs, which is what this team has looked like. And that's kind of to my point, they have seemed to have turned a corner identity wise on being able to stay patient, stay calm, have poise, and they don't seem to be panicking, giving away leads, coughing up games that should be won. They just haven't done that in months right now. And I'm hoping that it's that identity that's going to get them through the playoffs because it does feel a bit different to me this year as far as the character that they hold in that locker room.
Favorite cliche, the proof will be in the pudding come the springtime. The wrap up is brought to you by our friends at PointsBet Canada. Man, oh man, Rosie, I was so confident about my pick yesterday. I laid out the data, the analytics, the statistics, and I mentioned it in my hit. I'm like, the under is going to hit. You just had that feeling. There was a couple disallowed goals, called backs, video reviews. I'm like, this is just not going my way. So we're going to start fresh tonight. Just know that you're on the clock, okay? Because I don't like to lose too many in a row. I lose my mojo, my flow. So you're on the clock here at the very least, okay?
Yeah, no worries. I'll be ready. But yeah, I know every bet you've been making has had good rationality behind it. And I mean,
Yeah.
it seems like these days, especially when you do those overs and unders, with the offside, seems like a lot of challenges on offsides have gone back, taking goals away, video reviews. It's funny because you don't really think about it if you're not betting, but man, can those ever blow up and over in a hurry?
You're telling me. Okay, so for tonight's game, the Toronto Maple Leafs hosting the Anaheim Ducks, I'm going back to the well. No, it's not the Mitch Marner prop. No, it's not the Mitch Marner shot prop, but I do like that. He's cleared in 7 straight, by the way, over 2.5. Give me the Austin Matthews anytime goal. I know we're now into negative money again, minus 135. We love the plus money when we can get it with Matthews. He's starting to cook in a big time way. He scored in 6 of 7, 14 of 22. He has 5 goals, 11 points in 9 career games against the Anaheim Ducks. So I think Austin Matthews scores again tonight, Rosie.
Yeah, isn't it funny hearing those numbers and kind of almost feeling like he's, maybe playing second, third fiddle lately, especially when, Nylander steps up and just has a monster game and you're kind of thinking Austin's tucked back in the in the reads there, and he's just quietly putting up monsters again. So good problem to have. And yeah, anytime you get him that you can put some money on him scoring a goal in a hockey game, man, I mean, it's just not a bad bet, right? He's one of the best in the world right now, and he's just kind of starting to heat up, it feels like.
Take a peek at that shot prop too, and I think you're bang on. Matthews, I think, you look at the scoring race right now. I know he could look distant right now. Just talk to me in a couple months. We've seen this before from Austin Matthews. He's starting to cook in a big way, and this guy can't be stopped. For my money, he's the best goal scorer right now in the NHL. The data and the analytics and the statistics back that up as well. So Austin Matthews, anytime goal. Rosies, we get set for the Leafs and the Anaheim Ducks tonight from Scotiabank Arena. A 14-game point streak for Toronto, 11-0-3, and Mitch Marner, 22 in a row with a point. The storyline, the narratives write themselves tonight.
Tell me, are they due for a stinker, as you call it, or a sleeper?
No, I don't get that feeling. I honestly don't. Like we call those type of games where you sleep through it, right? Trap games, I think, is the way I refer to them usually. But I think you look at Anaheim, they're coming off just an embarrassing loss to Ottawa. They were outplayed. It's a back-to-back. They're 7-19-3 or whatever it is. I just don't think anything backs up Anaheim's walking into Scotiabank Arena. And again, this could be famous last words and walking away with a win. Having said that, I will say Toronto better be ready. Again, it's the NHL. Every opponent's going to be tough. The Ducks always play Toronto difficult in this building, but I think Toronto should win tonight. I'd look at them in the puck line actually too on PointsBet Canada.
Yeah, I hear you. I just don't see it happening. I think this team's ready. I think this team's smart right now. I think they understand what's going on. They've got a grasp of where they're at and how they've been doing it. And I really think, like puck line bet this team. I think they're licking their lips and they're ready and they want to smash this team, especially since they've already lost to them. I just don't see them laying an egg. So could be a good one. I hope to see a big score ran up on these guys.
Yeah, they're on the heater of a century, and hopefully they put on a show for yours truly. Again, we'll be in the building for this game at Scotiabank Arena. Rosie, excellent job. Safe travels, and back home tomorrow, right?
You bet, man. Enjoy the game. I'm kind of jealous of you. You got yourself a night ahead of you.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a big post-game report coming up tomorrow. My first game at Scotiabank Arena in years. I'm sitting in the crowd at the very least. It's been a long, I can't remember the last time I was in the crowd in that building. So I'll give you the 411. I love to walk the concourse level. Some great eye candy. So that's the best part of the night. I'll bring you an update tomorrow. For Jay Rosehill, I'm Nick Alberga. Thanks so much for listening and watching. Take care.